car wreck okay? Everything's all right? Okay, good. And then I don't see Jesse or Kendall yet. Bailey's here. Liz is here. I think I saw Marianne come in. Jasmine's here. So we should have enough to fill up the hour. Oh, you might want to get up there. You're on. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're doing our persuasive speeches today, final ones. It's not? What, with your laptop, you mean? You want somebody else? Yeah, let's just keep going up the list. Marianne, if you're ready, why don't you go ahead and jump up there? Oh, okay. Yeah, Marianne, just take off.
Okay. Okay.
It's the fifth.
Okay. Imagine rushing into the emergency room, terrified in pain and desperate for help, only to hear the words, "I can't treat you because it goes against my moral beliefs." In that moment, your health, safety, and dignity are compromised on someone else's personal opinions. This issue isn't theoretical. Every year, people are denied care because of their doctor or pharmacist refuses service due to moral or religious beliefs. Patients have been denied birth control, HIV medication, abortions, and gender-affirming care. When personal beliefs decide who deserves treatment, access to care becomes unequal and lives are at risk. As a college student and somebody that is going into the medical field, I know that any of us could depend on healthcare in a life or death moment. I believe healthcare should be a place of safety and trust, not judgment or rejection. That's why this topic matters to me. As somebody who believes that compassion, not personal opinion, should be the forefront of medical care. Doctors should not be allowed to refuse care based on personal beliefs, and when they do, patients suffer, healthcare becomes unfair, and the very foundation of medical ethics, the commitment to treat all who need help, is weakened. I'm going to cover 3 main points. Number 1, patients' rights must come first. 2, refusals limit access to care. And 3, medicine must remain evidence-based. Number 1, the American Medical Association's Code of Ethics states that physician's first duty is to patient's well-being. Do no harm. The quote, do no harm universal standard isn't optional. It's something that whenever you become a doctor, you have to sign your life away to, that your care should be focused on the patient and nothing else. 2, refusing care based on moral or religious belief limits access to care through the patient. So if your doctor refuses care and you're in a rural area, that limits your access to care because you can't find anybody else. According to the American Journal of Public Health, over 1 in 5 patients in rural areas have limited provider options. And then number 3, medicine must remain evidence-based. Major medical organizations like the American College of Physicians emphasize that decisions should be grounded in science and not ideology. Allowing moral or religious refusals invites bias into healthcare and undermines the trust between doctors and patients. However, some may argue that doctors should be allowed to refuse care based off their personal and religious freedom. They claim forcing doctors to take in these procedures that they morally oppose, such as certain reproductive or end-of-life treatments, violates their own conscience and freedom of belief. While freedom of belief is important, choosing to practice medicine is a privilege and not a personal right. When doctors earn their license, like I was saying before, they agree to uphold a professional standard of care, even when it's uncomfortable. A doctor's personal belief should never outweigh a patient's right to treatment. If a provider does object to a procedure, they can still ensure a patient receives timely care by referring them immediately to another professional. So in that case, that's how you would balance your responsibility to the patient as well as your own freedom of belief without denying care. In the end, personal belief should never interfere with professional duty. Doctors must treat patients based on compassion, equality, and evidence, not on personal moral judgment. We all will rely on the healthcare systems at some point in our lives. If we want to protect fairness, safety, and trust in that system, we must support laws and hospital policies that prevent moral judgment and discrimination in healthcare. When someone is sick or scared, they deserve treatment, not a lecture, because in medicine, certain beliefs should not be a barrier to healing. Thank you.
Yay, very good. No questions? No clapbacks? Okay, well, very good. Okay, we're just gonna keep going down our list here. Jasmine, you ready to go?
Imagine sitting in your room with a feeling that you just can't shake. One day you're fine and the next you can't get out of the bed. You finally work the courage to talk to your parents, only to hear we can't afford therapy. How is that fair? No one should have to choose between their mental health and finances. Therapy should be affordable for everyone. When therapy or mental health services are too expensive, people suffer in silence. Many go undiagnosed with anxiety, depression, or PTSD, or any other conditions that will later lead into a crisis. These crises sometimes result in suicidal thoughts, hospitalization, or a job loss. The World Health Organization estimates that depression or anxiety costs the global economic over $1 trillion every year in lost productivity. Without excessive care, people lose not just their health, but their stability in relationships. I know this personally. I've struggled with my mental health for 4 years. The first 2, I wasn't able to afford therapy. It wasn't until I found out that the Cherokee Hospital, or the Indian Hospital here in Claremore, offers free therapy, that I finally got the help. And I'm grateful to be Cherokee because I was able to get the help. But what about everybody else? What about the millions of people that can't afford the accessible or the affordable and free therapy? Therapy shouldn't depend on where you live, who you are, and how much you earn. It should be a right, not a privilege. A growing mental health crisis affects millions of young people today. Nearly 1 in 5 teens experiences anxiety or depression, and 18 have seriously considered suicide in the past year. Native Americans face the highest suicide rates of any racial or ethnic group, and about 70% of them will experience a mental health disorder in their lifetime. Some argue that therapy costs are fair because education and training therapists are completed, and yes, the skill is valuable, but that doesn't change the fact of the reality that many people simply can't afford hundreds of dollars for help. Even with sliding scale fees or insurance, the cost remains too high for too many. However, the citizens that are able to afford therapy or any kind of help, they think that everybody else can, or if they see somebody going through a mental crisis, they think locking them up in a mental hospital is better. But how is that beneficial to them? And simply they just need medication or a therapist that can talk to on a daily basis. And there are some free help, such as school counseling or support groups, so those are often limited or temporary. True healing requires consistent professional care. We can't keep ignoring the cost of mental health care. It's time to speak up, vote for change, and push for insurance that truly covers mental health care. Advocate for policies that make therapy accessible and share resources that can't afford the help. Don't be silent, talk about it, advocate it, and stand with those who are waiting for affordable care. Because no one should choose between their mental health, should choose between healing and surviving. Mental health care should be a right, not a privilege. Any questions?
I don't think so, but Jasmine, you did really good on this. I mean, you really developed well, and I thought everything was really positive. You can tell your voice is a little scratchy maybe from something's going on, but I thought you varied your melody better than you have in the past. And I thought that it was a solid argument. Something I would say to you and to Marianne both is when you get to your opposite side, you both said, some say. And so what we want in any kind of argumentative situation is when you have that opposite side, it can't just be some vague something. It needs to be a real data point or a real fact or a real person or a real quote or something like that, just more specific. Aside from that, though, I thought it was really good. So let's give Jasmine a hand. Way to go, Jasmine. Grace is up next. I'm just rolling through the list here. And I don't see Caden up there. What's his deal? Melissa Bailey Kendall is here. Okay. David. We might get through everybody, we'll see.
How many of you know someone who's an immigrant or refugee from another country? Today, I'm going to share with you why it's important for immigrants and refugees to integrate rather than assimilate into a new country. If you're unfamiliar with these terms, assimilation is where a minority culture fully conforms to the dominant culture by adopting language, culture, custom, and religion. And integration is where these cultures are able to come together and combine rather than conforming one way or the other. Integration is vital because it eases acclimation, helps to support a family's fresh start, and provides a platform for generational prosperity. What's at stake here? There are thousands of families that are stuck in unsafe countries, and for some, the best option is to flee to another country. Oftentimes, it is out of necessity and not desire that families leave their home country. Whether these reasons are for safety, freedom of expression, or pursuit of equality, sometimes leaving the country that you love is the safest option. While people may be physically safer in a new country, it is a constant mental battle of missing home, feeling out of place, and struggling to integrate into the new culture. Maintaining cultures and customs while learning to navigate a new country is a very important part of migrating somewhere. This is why the difference between integration and assimilation is so crucial. The reason I chose to speak about this today is for two main reasons. The first being my dad's family came to America from Russia, and they had a difficult time getting here, and it wasn't until they were sponsored by some sort of Methodist church program that they were able to come here from a displaced persons camp in Munich, Germany. And there's a website called gatewayoklahomahistory.org, and you can find newspaper articles and pictures and things like that of your family if they have a history here in Oklahoma. And there is a picture of my great uncle, and it was from an interview with him when he was 15, and it talks about how he felt as being tagged as a displaced person. And a quote from him is, he said, "I didn't come here to be a displaced person. I came here to be an American." And that really stuck with me because my dad's family, they still are very happy that we're able to be here to get better opportunities, because it's much safer in America than it is in Russia. And especially when you have my grandma, when she had twin young daughters, and it's much safer for women here than it is there. And so they're very happy to be here, and they just were like overjoyed that they were able to be safe and express themselves and not be in constant fear of like everyday life. And the other reason I'm choosing to talk about this today is because my family is very close with the Afghan refugees that live in Owasso, and we've helped teach them English and show them around town, help them enroll for classes, whether it's high school or like TCC, things like that. And my mom teaches the young children like twice a week. The ones that aren't quite old enough for school, she teaches them like letters and colors and numbers and things like that, just to help them have a better start to their education as well. And the opposite side of this is people will argue that, well, you came here and you should change your ways. You should only speak, if you come to America, you should only speak English, and you should be Christian and this and that. And I read an article that covered an ethnographic study, which ethnographic means relating to the scientific description of people and cultures with their customs, habits, and mutual differences. And it spoke about pertaining to specifically Hispanic students in a school in the Midwest, and it took place between 2004 and 2005, and it talked about how even the teachers there were saying harmful things or looking down upon them for not speaking English at school, and it made them feel even more out of place and even more lost in their new environment. And while it can be true that it is beneficial to speak the language that most people speak in a country, there's no reason to force people to not celebrate their own cultures and customs as well. So in closing, integration is important because it eases acclimation, helps support a family's fresh start, and provides platform for generational prosperity. And my call to action for you is, if you have an opportunity to help people learn English, I really think you should. It not only does it help them, but it helps you see the world in a different way, and it helps you to help people. And lots of people can speak English, and so if you can help someone else, and sometimes it's scary because it's like, well, they might not understand me, and it's like, well, that's your interaction with one person, and if you can help them, you can better their interactions with thousands of people, because they'll be better equipped with tools from you to have a better life in the country that they had to come to. Any questions?
How do you feel about the ICE roundups?
I feel like I have mixed, but I don't want to get too political because it was very hard for my family to come here, and it took them a long time to do all of the things. And there's on that website too, there's a picture of my great grandmother when I think she was 50 something, 60 something when she finally got her citizenship, and there's a picture, it made it in the newspaper, and she looks really proud and all that stuff. So I don't think that people are being treated humanely, and I don't think that it's right. I don't know. I don't want to get into it, but okay.
On the spot, but
Yeah.
that's part of this whole subject matter. So good response to that. Anybody else? Okay, really good job. Way to go. Okay, let's see. We're skipping Caden today. Alyssa, what do you have for us?
A lot of people my age are wondering if college is even worth it. And honestly, how can I blame them with how expensive it is? About 56% of Americans don't enroll in college because of the cost. 38% of those who do enroll end up dropping out because they can't afford it. We're told college leads to better jobs and higher pay. But how can that be true if so many people can't even get there? That's why I believe that college should be free. It would open up opportunities, reduce student debt, and help people live better, healthier lives. Let's talk about the money first. The average bachelor's degree can cost anywhere from $27,000 to over $100,000. Most students have to take out loans, and that debt can follow them for years or even decades. In 2020, student debt hit $1.56 trillion, and that's not helping anybody's future. Other countries have already proven that free college can work. Germany, Norway, and Finland all made college tuition free for everyone, even international students. Germany did it back in 2014, and it helped reduce financial stress and built a stronger, more skilled workforce. These countries see education as a right, not a privilege. Free college also improves health. Studies showed that college graduates are less likely to have heart disease, anxiety, or depression. They're more likely to have health insurance, stable jobs, and less stress. When people are educated, they make healthier choices that benefit everyone. Now, I know that some people disagree with the idea of free college. They say that it would raise taxes, overcrowd schools, and lower the quality of education. And yes, those are valid concerns. Nothing comes completely free. Somebody has to pay for it. But here's the thing. Education is an investment, and if the government can invest billions of dollars into things like the military and corporate bailouts, then why not invest in our people? When more people can afford to go to college, they end up getting better jobs, paying more in taxes, and contributing more to the economy. In the long run, the country is actually making that money back. Another argument people make is that if college was free, students wouldn't take it seriously. But let's be real, most people go to college to have better lives, not to waste their time. Free college wouldn't take away motivation. It would remove the fear of lifelong debt. If completely free college isn't possible right now, we can make it at least more affordable, have better financial aid, offer more scholarships, and lower the student loan interest rate. In the end, making college free isn't just about getting the degree. It's about giving everyone a fair shot at success. Because when more people are educated, our entire country gets stronger economically, socially, and even health-wise. So the real question isn't, can we afford free college? It's, can we not afford to? Thank you.
I would really enjoy a debate between you and Cooper, who's not here today. I don't know if you saw his speech on Monday or not, but it was about education and what education's for and so forth. Outside of that, I thought you did a good job. I'm gonna get you on the same thing. Go ahead, come on in, Caden. Get you on the same thing that we got Jasmine and Marianne on, which is your opposite side. You just say some.
So, yeah.
We want something specific over there, some real thing, real person. But other than that, I thought it was very well structured. I liked how you jumped right in. All the things that are at debt are at stake. I thought you made some really good points about how important education is and how it improves health. You improve health, you lower the stress on the medicine system or medical system, and so perhaps costs come down. So all those are really positive things. I thought the other interesting, you're doing so much better. I want you to free your hands a little bit. You're locked down up there, so move them around some. And about 2/3 of the way through, you stop breathing. So you were really strong, 2/3. Could you tell when it happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to slow down, but then I just couldn't catch my breath after that.
You went from being really loud and solid and strong to just about when you hit the opposite side, you stopped breathing and your voice got all wavery again. So that's better though than it was before, because before you would not even start strong. At least now you're starting strong and running out of gas about 2/3 of the way through. So now the challenge for you is to take a breath and make the rest of your speech as strong as the first part of it.
Okay.
But I thought it was good overall. Okay, let's give her a hand. There you go. Okay, Bailey. Let's see what you have going on today.
You probably noticed it by now. Every time you buy something, a screen flips around asking if you'd like to leave a tip. From coffee shops, takeout counters, to even self-checkouts, tipping has become expected almost everywhere. What started as a way to show appreciation has turned into something that feels forced. But here's why that matters. As tipping culture becomes more extreme, customers are starting to push back a little. Some even refuse to tip out of protest. However, this is not affecting those companies at all. It just hurts their workers. What many people don't realize is that restaurant servers are not making the same minimum wage as everyone else. In the US, their base pay is still just $2.13 an hour, meaning their income depends almost entirely on tips alone. I work in a restaurant, so I see the negatives to this every day. Servers run from table to table, managing multiple guests at once, only to end the night with little to nothing when people decide not to tip. As someone planning to go into human resources, this makes me question why the US is still relying on customers to pay workers fairly, and what we can learn from other countries who have moved beyond tipping. The US needs to end tipping culture and replace it with fair, employer-paid wages to create stability for workers and eliminate the guilt and uncertainty tied to modern-day tipping. First, labor costs need to be tied into menu prices. Since 1991, the federal tip minimum wage has been stuck at $2.13 an hour. It's unfair that servers' income is left up to the customers to decide, and employers should be the ones paying workers fairly by including the cost of labor into the menu prices. At my restaurant, we recently started this endless possible promotion. Well, a table ordered it, and they had ordered refill after refill, and I watched their server run back and forth for hours getting these refills. And in the end, they left her nothing. She worked for free that night. No server should ever be in that position, and we can avoid situations like these by just including the cost of labor into the menu. Next, other countries already implement this system successfully. In many countries like France, Japan, or Australia, tipping is not expected because fair wages are already given. A meal might cost slightly more, but the price reflects the true cost of service. And customers can still leave small cash tips if they want to, but no one is pressured or guilted into it. Now compare that to the US, where tipping is not only expected, but it's monitored. You might notice that at many coffee shops, the barista will flip the screen towards you asking for a tip, and they can see what you pick before they even make your drink. This is referred to as guilt tipping, because it pressures people to tip more based on fear of judgment or fear of them messing your drink up on purpose. And not to mention, the current system is also full of many loopholes. Going back to the endless possibles I mentioned before, I've seen this many times, but customers order multiple refills, box them up, then tip their server nothing. This way, they're getting many meals for free at the expense of the server. And in the same way that customers can trick restaurants, these businesses already use tipping to their advantage. For example, the standard tipping amount is 20% of your bill. Well, at a restaurant like mine, where meals are about $15 to $25, you're not tipping a whole lot. But at places like a steakhouse, these meals can be as high as $70. So a 20% tip there is going to be way more than it would be anywhere else. So how's that fair? You're paying for the same amount of service, however, one is triple the amount. And this is solely because we're basing it off a percentage rather than the cost of the meal. But of course, not everyone's going to agree with the change. A lot of servers I work with actually disagree with eliminating tipping. Many of them are used to making far more than minimum wage on busy nights, sometimes even $15 to $25 an hour on tips alone. To them, switching to a standard hourly wage sounds like a pay cut, and they worry that without the motivation of tips, good service might not be rewarded, and their earning potential would be limited. That concern is understandable, however, real-world examples show that isn't always true. According to NCR Magazine, when a Chicago restaurant implemented a no tipping policy, servers' pay actually became more consistent and reliable, and their income... Service pay actually became more consistent and reliable. Instead of depending on unpredictable tips or generous customers, they had a steady paycheck to fall back on, plus commission opportunities through promoting drinks, desserts, and specials. This means that servers still have a chance to make more money, just in a different way. So to restate my main point, the US needs to move away from tipping culture and towards fair employer-paid wages. While this change would cause restaurant prices to rise slightly, that increase would only be about 10 to 15%, which is actually less than what we already pay on tipping alone, standard tipping. In other words, fair pay for workers does not have to mean higher costs for customers. But until that change happens, we should continue tipping servers fairly at sit-down restaurants, since they still depend on these earnings. But we should also recognize where tipping is not necessary, such as coffee shops or counter-service kiosks, because these workers are already being paid hourly. My parents always told me, when you go out to eat, you're paying for both the food and the service. So if you can't afford that paid extra 10 to 15%, then maybe dining out is not the right choice that night. There are always going to be cheaper alternatives, but your server should not be the ones paying the price. Any questions?
I don't really have any questions about this, and the reason why is because it was really well organized. You told the story very well. You got our attention with your tipping scenario. What's at stake? People not making a living wage. You are a restaurant worker, so you've seen it all happen right in front of you. I thought you had good use of sources and your personal experience. I thought what was interesting is I mentioned a couple of other students who said some disagree, and you went to servers. So you didn't use an actual documented source or anything, but you did use an actual group of people who are involved in this and are opposed to that. So I thought that that was good. Of all of this though, well organized, you did well. I thought you did better at looking around at everybody and not just at me, because I'm the teacher. And what I thought you also did well was you talked a lot more than you read. And I wanted to compliment Alyssa on that as well. And actually everybody did better on that this time around. Marianne, Jasmine, where you're talking more than you're just reading from your phone. So I thought that that was good, or whatever you're using, I don't know if you're using your phone. And the other thing that you did well, you slowed down a little bit. So I think you were consciously trying to do that, and you did. So I thought that that was a little, maybe not quite as much as you might need to in the future, but you know, if you are going to the HR realm, you're gonna be a trainer, you're gonna be telling people about stuff. People that are listening need a little time to absorb everything. But I thought you did slow down a little, so I thought that was good. Okay, good job all the way around. Let's give her a hand. Kendall, you're up next. Then looks like, how are we doing on our time? Good. What we're trying to get in here would be, well, Kendall's going now, Jesse, Hunter, David, and then we're back up top to Caden if we get there. Okay.
Guns are the #1 reason children die in America. Comprehensive data from the CDC shows that youth ages from 1 to 19 die from firearm injuries, and that has become the leading cause of death. Firearms have become the leading cause of death for American children and teens. That overtakes car crashes and cancer in recent years. First, we're going to look at the trends. In 2020 and 2021, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and other sources reported that injuries from firearms surpassed motor vehicle crashes as the leading cause for death among children and adolescents. Between 2019 and 2021, the number of children and teens being killed by gunfire increased roughly 46%, from about 2.4 per 100,000 to 3.5 per 100,000 in the under 18 age group. I chose to write about gun reform. Even though it doesn't directly affect me, or I haven't been directly affected by gun violence, I see how deeply it impacts all of our families, all of our communities, all of our schools, how everybody interacts and is in public. And it is heartbreaking to hear anytime you hear about a mass shooting or a child's life being cut short because of gun violence. I'm passionate about this topic because I believe that nobody, especially children, should have to live in fear of being shot at a school, in public, or even at home. Gun reform isn't about taking people's rights away, it's about protecting lives and creating safer communities for everybody. Even without personal experience, I feel a strong responsibility to speak up on an issue that affects so many others. The problem can't be dismissed as something that only affects people in certain places. As of 2023, nearly 47,000 people in the US died from gun-related injuries, a toll that includes homicide, suicide, accidents, mass shootings, and other firearm deaths. That number is shockingly high, and it shows that the nationwide public health crisis is something that we cannot ignore. I am not arguing to take away the Second Amendment. Most Americans, including many gun owners, want to keep their rights to own their guns. But rights come with responsibilities, and when a right is producing tens of thousands of preventable deaths a year, common sense rules are necessary to keep people safe, and they are necessary to preserve constitutional freedoms. Stronger, reasonable policies are ones that immediately prioritize closing loopholes in background checks so private and online sales aren't a way around safety screenings. Evidence reviews find moderate evidence that background checks, especially those that cover private sales and associated with reductions in firearm homicides and total homicides. Background checks don't confiscate guns, they make it harder for guns to get into the hands of people who are most likely to hurt them or other people. A very good tool used for risk protection orders, sometimes they are called the red flag laws, and basically require a permit to purchase rule that temporarily removes firearms from people in crisis or with violent tendencies or histories. Research shows that these laws, when implemented well, reduce suicides and partner homicides and low overall firearm mortality in states that use them. Add secure storage laws and public education and safe storage, and we can prevent many accidental deaths and access to guns. We need more federal support for research for better data collection. The Surgeon General and major public health institutes now call gun violence a public health crisis and urging funding for evidence-based strategies. That's kind of a long-term, nonpartisan work that will actually save lives. We do have a lot of data on gun data and violence, but it's not keeping up, I feel like, as fast of a pace as things are happening. We know how many mass shootings happen per year because we hear them in the news, but not too much evidence, I feel like, is being collected as there should be. So the call to action is, I think, pretty easy, which is vote for candidates who support evidence-based reforms. Most of us are all 18 and are the legal age to vote. you need to contact representatives, ask for universal background checks, safe storage incentives, and robust funding for prevention and data. You can talk with friends and family about this. It's not just a political issue, it's a safety issue. Every single voice matters. I believe that it is our call to action to try and help fix this, because the ages 1 to 19 that are being affected, they can't do anything about it. They can't go talk to their representatives. They don't have a voice per se in this matter. They could feel some type of way, parents could feel another. They vote against gun reform because they don't want their guns taken away, when it isn't about taking away guns or the Second Amendment. It's about safety and not wanting to die trying to live your day-to-day life. We can protect the Second Amendment and still demand sensible, proven rules so children don't keep dying at the rates that we see today. We owe that to the next generation of kids. Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions?
Let's see. It's a tricky subject all the way around. And anytime somebody argues this, it's always a challenge. But your main thing, and I think is a good way to approach it, is children's lives. That's what's at stake. And so we see this all the time in discussions about this subject. I saw one particularly acrimonious discussion between Jon Stewart, the television commentator, and an Oklahoma legislator. I don't know if you've seen this or not. I'm really commenting more than asking a question. But his main thing was, what's your priority? Well, we want to get trans people out of sports, and we want to get any book that has any kind of sexual information in it out of a library. That's our priority. And then Jon Stewart says something like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but what about something that is really detrimental to children in a health sense? What's that? Well, firearms. Why aren't we doing something about firearms, since that's what kills most children, as you've already noted? And the guy says, well, that's not really our priority because we're a Second Amendment state. And here, as you know, in Oklahoma, once you're 18, anybody can carry around a gun. Don't need a license. Don't need a background check. All you gotta do is just get one. And keep it in your car, and walk around with it. Now, you can't come on campus with it and show it anyway. You keep it in your trunk. So, as a rational person, I would think that your argument would be good. And I had to kind of pull your thesis out. That was one thing I think could be a little stronger, because I had to kind of figure it out. Stronger policies need to be in place to keep guns in check. And I get that. And then I liked how you use statistics, good use of facts regarding the background checks, the red flag laws, need more research. I wondered how you were going to bring the opposite side in. And you finally did. You kind of flipped it. You did your call to action, then you did your opposite side. And your opposite side really is, this is about, well, Second Amendment people would say this is about taking away our guns, but it's not. It's about safety of children. So I thought that was good. You had your call to action. What I would say on your delivery still, I thought your volume was good. You could use your hands a little bit more, and you are reading more than talking. And I think that's from not doing the warm-up one last week. So I think if you practice that a couple more times, you'd be able to just talk to us about it instead of reading more. So I think that's something you can work on. But really, that's about it. The rest of it was structured pretty well. And I think it is an important argument to make. But it's a tricky, tricky deal, and it's not easy to solve. And I don't know if there is a solution for it.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it because I don't like that people think it's so black and white. Like how he says we're a Second Amendment state. Yes, we can still be a Second Amendment state, but with more policies in place.
Right.
And I get that they have other matters that they think is more of a priority in their view, but there's a lot of people that don't think that's what it is. I didn't put them, but there's like a bunch of polls people take because they're not technically like credible sources, but the majority of people believe that we do need some sort of firearm policies and stronger ones at that, because there's so many mass shootings, or people aren't locking up any of their guns properly. And it's really not a black and white issue. There can be reaching across the aisle, per se, to the other side, being able to see that thousands of millions of people are dying from this. We should do something about it instead of something that oh, there's trans people in sports.
What I want to say to you now, Kendall, is that is exactly what I was hoping you would do, which was just talk to us. So what you just did there in that last minute is what you want to do with the rest of your talk. Because you have a good, serious approach to things, very determined delivery. Once you're doing it on your own, out of your brain, instead of reading it, it's more powerful. So keep on going in that direction. Okay, let's give her a hand. Yay. Okie doke. Jesse, what are you talking to us about today? Did you ever decide which one?
Generative AI.
Oh yeah, the AI one, that's right. Let's hear what you're talking about today. AI has been going nuts lately. There's an AI bubble. Have you heard of this? Like all this money was spent on it, and now maybe the return on investment is not what people thought, and so now things are changing. All these layoffs that have been happening at the corporate levels across the country perhaps are a result of AI taking some of these jobs. That's why I say, whatever job you're gonna pick, make sure you run it through AI. Except Jesse.
Not just that, but I have a friend who like invests in stocks, and he talks about that, the AI bubble. Like if that pops with how much money is invested in that, how that could, I don't want to say ruin our economy, but have a very big negative impact
Tank it
on
for a
it if
while.
that pops.
Okay, let's hear it.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Jesse, and today I'm going to be talking about generative AI and its negative consequences. But before we start, what is generative AI? Generative AI is a type of artificial intelligence that can generate new content once it has been fed a certain data set, such as, and it can generate usually things like text responses, images, or videos. That last part's pretty important. To be able to replicate something like a art style, for example, it has to be fed roughly anywhere from 200 to 1,000 images of that art or the art it's trying to mimic to train it. And these don't come out of thin air. Currently, there's a very big problem of it being fed content from various artists who have never consented to their work being used or even know that their work is being used just because they posted it to social media and they have an algorithm taking this art. This is just one of the many issues springing up from AI, generative AI, that I'm scared about. I have a lot at stake, not only as an artist, but as a naturalist and hopefully, if all goes well, a future scientist. And I think our generation has a lot more at stake as we realize currently we are raising the next doctors, the next engineers, the next politicians and world leaders, and this is something we're going to have to deal with. We have opened this Pandora's box and we can't close it anymore. We're going to have to live with it in some way or form. So my goal here today is not to say you shouldn't use generative AI, it's the devil, never use it, because we're going to have to use it in some way or form, but I would like you to think before you use it. I'll be talking about the environmental, neurological, and psychiatric impacts that we've been seeing with it so far. A really good case environmentally for some of the impacts it's had is the case of Beverly Morris. She's a woman from Mansfield, Georgia, and she had a data center built 400 feet from her house, or 400 yards from her house, which doesn't sound as close until you realize how big these data centers are and how bright they are. It's been leaching contaminants into her well water. It's been severely impacting her water pressure as it draws from that aquifer. And she's struggling to sleep at night with how bright the lights are. I showed a picture last week. I'll have to pull it up real quick. But I couldn't imagine, like, just seeing the light, how the light just blares through her windows at night. I have a picture on my phone here. My phone's a little bit scratched up, but like this is what she has to sleep with every night. And I could not imagine that. And obviously I care about a lot because of light pollution, how it impacts our animals, but this is just a way how like it impacts people too. And I'm not sure if you've all heard, but in Owasso, they actually broke ground on the new data center they're planning to build, their Project Clydesdale. Will it be as detrimental as that one? I don't know. It's a new field, and I'm a bit scared, to be honest. For some neurological impacts, some experts have been theorizing it could cause cognitive atrophy, is what they're calling it. A Harvard study found participants assisted by ChatGPT wrote 60% faster, but their relative cognitive load fell by 32%. EEG showed brain connectivity was almost halved alpha and theta waves, and 83% of AI users were unable to remember a passage they had just written. And that's really scary. I mentioned it earlier, but like, we are the next generation of doctors, engineers, politicians, like, and I'm just scared. I'm not demonizing AI as a whole. My job will use AI. Like for manatee counts, bat counts, like we use algorithms to help assist us. But generative AI specifically, this creating new content, I think the content online, it definitely needs to be labeled. They need to be more transparent about like what they're using to like feed the data sets and just how much power. I had to search for an hour last night trying to find out like how many watts it used. And I just hope y'all think before you use generative AI. It's still a new field. We don't know fully how it's affecting the environment, people, and mental issues. Thank you. Any questions?
With just a little bit, we have a minute and a half. What's the opposite side of this? That you kind of brought this up, that you are going to use it, that it is going to be a positive thing in some ways, but we need to be more cautious about it. And we need to know more about the development of it. Is that where you're going with all that?
Yeah. I think a lot of tech companies, like AI is kind of mystified a little bit. A lot of people don't know fully how it works. Mm-hmm. And that can deny culpability of the people who have created it. And often, like, we forget that there's engineers that created this. There's engineers that made this. It's not this mystical boogeyman we can point to all our problems. Like, people are behind this, and I feel like knowing more about it can help.
I think everybody needs to reckon with AI and how it's going to impact them. One of my colleagues asked AI, what period are we in now of humanity? And it said the post-human period. So that's where we're not postmodern anymore, we're post-human, because humans can only be so smart, but AI can be smarter, but it doesn't have a soul, can't love, so it's not a human.
Yeah.
It's after humans.
Some environmental experts would argue that we're in the anthropogenic extinction period currently, the 6th mass extinction event, looking at current numbers. But that's another topic.
Important to know. All right, we're finished today. We're going to come back on Wednesday. David, you go.